My name is Carel Brest van Kempen. Brest van Kempen, that's all my last name, 3 words. And I'm a painter. I paint wild animals. I paint the natural world. I like to think I tell stories about the natural world in 2 dimensions. That's pretty much what I do. My last name, Brest van Kempen, that's all 3 words. It's 1 last name. It's a fairly new last name. It was my grandfather's father was the first. He was born Van Kempen, and he married into nobility. And at that time, it was de rigueur in the Netherlands if you were nobility, to have a double name. So he took his mother's maiden name, which was Brest, and added that and made it Brest van Kempen. And Kempen, that's a district in southern Netherlands and northern Belgium. It's kind of a wild area, appropriately, I think. You know, from the time I was a kid, I was really lucky. I grew up in Immigration Canyon, which is near Salt Lake City. It's a canyon near Salt Lake City, and I had immediate access to wilderness. And so I spent a lot of time exploring. And from the time I was really little, I was fascinated with the natural world and how it works, and how you've got this big system, you know, where energy and nutrients are cycling around, circulating through the whole thing from one organism to another, and they're all evolved to avoid getting eaten, or to be able to eat and to raise their young and stuff. And I've always been so fascinated by how that system works, and it's a never-ending source of exploration. And I've always loved to draw, and it was only natural that I combined those 2 things. And I've really been doing the same thing since I was a little kid, drawing pictures illustrating how the natural world functions, and how things are interrelated in the natural world. I grew up studying informally, studying ecology, studying how the science of how animals and plants interact with each other and interact with their surroundings. That science is ecology. And even as a kid, I informally studied it firsthand, and did a lot of it in kind of invasive ways. When I was a kid, it was in the community I lived in, it was pretty common for kids to, catch young coyotes or young bobcats or young squirrels or magpies and stuff, and raise them up. And there were about 5 older kids that were falconers, that flew birds of prey at game. And one of them is still one of the best falconers there is. He's still doing it. So I was aware that that was a thing, and I really wanted to do it. And so by the time I was 13, I was actually doing it, actually flying birds. And that was really a big part of making me the person I am. It was really important, because I like to define falconry as the art of convincing a bird of prey to take you on as their assistant. And that's really what you do. And you're forming a close relationship with a wild animal that's really intellectually complicated, and it really gives you insights. Being a falconer gives you insights that I think are the privilege of very few people. I think we have an understanding, having had those relationships, that most people don't have. So it's really a special thing. I'm really glad that I had that experience. So after high school, I went to college with the idea of being a biologist, going into biology and being a field biologist, doing research in the field. But I should have done more research on universities, and I went to the University of Utah, and at that time, I think still their biology department is really focused on microbiology and genetics and stuff, and had very little to offer in macrobiology, zoology, and ecology. So I took the courses that I was interested in taking, and the ones that were prerequisites for the ones that I had to take, and I didn't do really well, and I wound up losing my scholarship, and I dropped out, and then I went and worked in restaurants for a while, for a few years, and then worked as a caricature artist at Trolley Square for a while, which was really fun. It was actually pretty good money. On a good day, you know, I'd crank them out. I could crank out about a dozen of them in an hour, and I charged $5 a piece. And back then, you know, my rent was $350 a month. So I could make my rent on a good day, my rent for a month. So that was pretty nice, a lot better than being a cook in a restaurant. But then I moved on, and when I was in my late 20s, about 28 years old, all of a sudden my drawing and painting skills started to get actually good enough that I thought maybe I'd be able to make a living as an artist. And it's funny how when you're working in a discipline and improving in it, at least for me, it's always kind of a stair-stepping series of improvements. You know, you go for a while with very little improvement. Things are kind of the same, and then all of a sudden you'll still be learning stuff as you're going along, but you're not really figuring out how to apply it until it all congeals at a certain point, and you have a big moment of improvement, and then another node of not much, and then another big improvement. And I had this big improvement that happened at about age 28. And suddenly I thought, gosh, maybe I could actually pull that off. And so I was really very excited about that prospect, and threw everything I had into trying to be an artist. And for the first time in my life, was really serious about something. And that's really all I did for about 15 years, was paint and continue to study nature, and then try to promote my work, and then, you know, slowly work my way up into decent society.